Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled, Attention Without Feeling, It's Only a Report. I have a friend who pays attention. She notices everything. To notice, to pay attention is a wonderful quality to have in a human being, but it can be somewhat exhausting for them at times. And I empathise because I'm a bit like that myself. I am both blessed and cursed with this aspect of humanity. I notice everything. I pay attention to everything. It's a blessing and a curse. And my friend hosted a dinner party last weekend. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening. I paid attention to her as they paid attention to the needs of those present and the individual needs. The food was incredible and the company equally so. Each person's needs were fed. They were fed face to face. They were noticed. The food was incredible. The company equally so. Each person was fed. Each was served in a loving and attentive way, and the conversations were listened to with an attentive ear. It was wonderful to observe someone giving their full attention to others, rare in this world, really. It was a person offering what they had to others in a deeply loving way, and it was a joy to behold. It was deep devotion. It was prayerful. It was prayer in action if I've ever witnessed it. She reminded me of the two characters in a short passage from Luke's Gospel, Mary and Martha. Both of them combined in one. And I saw a similar example on Tuesday morning as I went for coffee, as I always do with a group of friends. It was my turn to pay, and I was mesmerised by Mars, the young woman behind the counter, as she knew the orders of all 12 of us. Now we're regulars, but I didn't have a clue what we had. Whereas Mars clearly pays attention to each of her customers. She's devoted to her work and those that she dutifully serves. She also pays attention to us as individuals. She listens and she shares as we listen to her. I often take time in conversation with her, and I can tell, although I can with most people, when things aren't right. And we talk, I listen, which is my gift, I think, to many people. She told me a few days later, as we were chatting about this, that generally she has a really terrible memory. She's diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. So generally she struggles to pay attention. And yet in her work, she seems to not suffer in the same way. Her dedication seems to allow her to be very attentive, to play, to pay attention. It's a loving thing. And attention, of course, is about love. It is love, perhaps, in its most basic form. When we pay attention to one another, when we notice each other's needs, we are living by love. This is love in action. By paying attention to another's needs, we are loving them and we are accepting them as they are. To me, this is the love that is spoken of in the heart of so many of the great spiritual traditions. This is pure religion, actually. It's more than passively observing. It's more than just being mindful. It's more than just empathy, feeling with another. It's more than both of those, than all of those things. True attention leads to devoted action. It's what we do. It's a form of deep, generous love. And when we are generous, we give our whole hearts to life and we give ourselves fully to one another. It's said that whenever the Buddha would teach, he would always begin with lessons on generosity. This idea of giving first, being open. And he did this because it brings joy, of course it does, and self-respect. So therefore it's a platform from which to live our lives, including our more painful, that we can explore our more painful ones if we live from this. And attention is a pure act of generosity. We can go to the painful places without becoming overwhelmed by them. And it's thought that when he always began talking about generosity because he believed that everybody has something to give. And that our gifts are not merely material and maybe attention in some form or another through our giftedness is what we all have to give. We can give ourselves to one another and to life itself, we can pay attention. But giving begins with attention in one form or another. It's the ultimate act of generosity, actually. It might be by offering a listening ear or enabling another to just feel uncomfortable when it's an uncomfortable situation. I have another friend who is wonderful at this. Generosity is a kind of hospitality, and they are a generous person, for they make people feel welcome, stranger and friend alike. I've seen them how they are with strangers entering difficult, challenging situations that we're both a part of, and their attention at making them feel comfortable is their wonderful gift. They welcome the stranger, and isn't that the spiritual life? It's a pure act of generosity, it's an act of love. I saw this in my friend at the dinner party. How lovely. I saw it in Mars this week. I see it in others too. And it brings me back to the welcome of Mary and Martha in that story from Luke. The visit of Mary and Martha is a fascination to me. I probably see it in a slightly unorthodox way, but you're used to that by now, aren't you? It comes at the end of chapter 10 in Luke's Gospel, immediately after the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's suggesting to me that it's teaching something about how we should offer loving hospitality to stranger and to friend. Our neighbour is what is in front of us, really. And so it's about paying attention. Something I witnessed in my friend and in Mars, and in my other friend who welcomes the stranger as a friend, really. They were all Mary and they were all Martha. And generally Mary's way, that of prayerful devotion, is seen as the better way. But isn't love also about service? Aren't both acts of attention? Remember, the visit to Mary and Martha follows the story of the Good Samaritan, a parable about loving attention and devoted service. He saw what needed to be done, and the Good Samaritan acted on that love, regardless of who it was. It's about giving our attention and acting on our attention from what we see that's in front of us, regardless of who or what that is. And isn't this the spiritual life? Isn't this spirituality a life? Isn't this faith and works? The story of Mary and Martha seems to me to be an invitation to us all, actually. An invitation to everyone to decide how we use our attention, more than just listening and paying attention, but acting from that. I think the whole chapter in Luke's about that. It's an invitation to explore how we pay attention to this, our world. It's about love in its highest form. For what we give our attention to, we love. Attention is true love. Attention is the most basic form of love. When we give our attention to someone or something, we bless them, and by doing so, we are blessed in turn. It's in giving that we all receive. My friend and Mars both exemplified this love. They incarnated that love spoken of throughout the Gospel accounts and at the heart of all the great faith traditions. It seems to me, at least. It matters what we pay attention to in life. Yes, it is vital to the spiritual life, but just as vital to the physical life. And I don't see them as separate anyway. They are intertwined. Attention is the key to solving problems in life, to creativity, to civilization in general. Our lives depend on what we pay attention to. This is why everything competes for our attention in life. We are so saturated by information, clawing for our attention all the time. And it can be difficult to know what we should pay attention to. But our lives depend on it. We need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to what really matters in life. The Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Victoria Safford, in her sermon, The Ethics of Attention, said, "Pay attention to the mystics and the poets, and the little kids tugging on our legs. Pay attention, says the sunset and the ice-cold morning, and the person telling you their story. Pay attention to the good friends at the barbecue, and the good food, and the voices in your head and heart. Only that day dawns to which we are awake. And we need to be awake to pay attention. And paying attention helps us to be awake, I would add. It matters what we pay attention to. It matters how we pay attention. It matters not only what we look at, but how we look at life. It's not just what we see, but how we see. This is a deliberate act, an ethical act, really. Attention may well be our most precious resource that we have to give. Remember, it's how we love by paying attention. Remember, it's how we both feel and express our love. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus is reported to have said, "You become what you give your attention to. If you don't choose what thoughts and images you expose yourself to, someone else will." And that's over 2,000 years ago he was saying that. Just imagine now, in the bombardment of modern life. Attention, you see, is not a passive act. It's a deliberate act. It is an ethical act. For if we do not choose our attention, what we pay our attention to will be put upon us. It's our ultimate freedom, really. A free person chooses what they love and what they can pay attention to. And the person who isn't doing that will be forced to pay attention by the information there, by what's going on all around them. They will lose their ultimate freedom. It matters what we pay attention to. It matters how we pay attention, because it will shape our lives. The 20th century French philosopher Simone Weil viewed attention as a moral virtue, just like justice and courage. She differentiated attention, though, from mere concentration. It's not just about focusing on the minutiae of life. In fact, it's more than mindfulness too. As she observed when in differentiating attention and concentration, she said, concentration constricts, attention expands. Concentration tires, attention rejuvenates. Concentration is focused thinking. Attention is thinking suspended. It opens up our purview, everything. It opens up everything. It widens our view. For Weil, attention ought to be seen as the rarest and the purest form of generosity. She saw attention as the pathway to transformation, far more than just our human will. In First and Last Notebook, she wrote, "We have to try to cure our faults by attention and not by will." It opens us up, you see. She believed that the will alone constricts the spirit, while attention is about expanding the spirit. Attention opens us up to so much more than our little singular selves, and it sets us free. Weil equated attention to prayer. Love and service to me, of course, is the highest form of prayer. I think of my friend last Saturday night. It makes me think of her deep attention, her love. It's a devoted form of prayer. Weil wrote, attention taken to its highest degree is the same thing as prayer. It presupposes faith and love. And this brings me back to both Mary and Martha. It brings me back to Mars in the coffee shop, and it brings me back to my friend who hosted so lovingly that dinner party with such care and love and attention. Simone Weil saw a deep connection between our capacity for paying attention and our capacity for prayer. Prayer consists of attention, she said. It is the orientation of all attention of which the soul is capable toward God. The quality of attention counts for much in the quality of prayer. Now, of course, paying attention will affect us, and it should affect us deeply. As Mary Oliver wrote, attention without feeling is only a report. So it's just concentration, I guess she's saying. And everything touched Mary deeply. It affected her, and she didn't merely report what she saw. Her attention was the ultimate prayer, and her poetry was devotion itself. As she said, attention is the beginning of devotion. And this is beautifully exemplified in the poem Spring, which I'm going to end this devotion with, actually. It's a poem about spring, of course it is, which is close by, it's on the horizon, it's soon be here. But it's also a poem about how we should live our lives. We should live like the black bear coming down the mountain in a poem as it awakens from hibernation, showing her perfect love. Mary, in the poem, asked the question, how should we live our lives? Well, attentively, loving the world, living our lives like a prayer. As Mary wrote, there is only one question: how to love the world. And loving the world means simply paying attention to the life that we're surrounded by, loving it by devoting ourselves fully to it, being touched and affected by it. Just like my friend last Saturday night, just like Mars in the coffee shop on Tuesday morning, just like my friend welcoming the stranger. They served from their hearts and they paid attention to everyone's needs without discrimination, just like the Good Samaritan, just like the Buddha teaching generosity. They showed me how to simply love the world. It's not that difficult, you know. All you have to do is pay attention, but you must do it with feeling, not as a passive observer. And it should inform our actions. For faith without works is dead. So here's the poem. I invite you to pay attention to it. Spring by Mary Oliver. Somewhere a black bear has just risen from sleep and is staring down the mountain. All night in the brisk, shallow restlessness of early spring, I think of her, her four black fists flicking the gravel, her tongue like a red fire touching the grass and cold water. There is only one question: how to love this world. I think of her rising like a black and leafy ledge to sharpen her claws against the silence of the trees. Whatever else my life is, with its poems and its music and its glass cities, is also this dazzling darkness coming down the mountain, breathing and tasting. All day I think of her, her white teeth, her wordlessness, her perfect love. Amen. I'm going to end now with some final words of blessing. You know, we all need to bless more, and we can all bless. You don't need to be a special person. We're all special people. And we bless by paying attention, by giving our attention, by giving ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So some final words of blessing. May the Spirit of love open our eyes. May it shine light even upon the darkest of days. May we recognize the sacredness of one another, the sacredness of all life in all time and in all spaces. May we experience the ground at our feet, shake off our shoes, feel it, know that all ground is holy ground, that we walk on holy ground. May we bring this sacredness to life. May we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do.